How's it hanging, guys? Listen, as a conservative guy, I like to conserve stuff, especially when that stuff is about my country. Back when it was cool, that is. Here's the problem, though. A lot of quote-unquote conservative talking points and ideas are actually totally not conservative.
Well, what do you mean, based white boy?
I mean, they're actually goofy,
No.
fruity,
Oh gosh.
Nancy pants,
Don't say it.
liberal ideas. That's right, a lot of ideas pushed by neocons and the GOP are actually liberal. Let's take a look at a few. Right, so this is an incredibly common talking point from about 90% of conservatives. Conservatives in this case meaning people to the right of Hillary Clinton, but to the left of Tim Pool, otherwise known as a neocon. These neocons fancy themselves incredibly patriotic because their main mission is to spread American democracy throughout the entire world. With guns. But this idea is actually liberal from the jump, because America was never meant to be a democracy. It was meant to be a constitutional republic. But what's the difference, Mr. White Boy? You ask. Well, a constitutional republic is a system with some democratic processes, but also the backbone of a constitution, outlining which institutions are granted which powers so that mob rule is prevented. Things like the Senate, Electoral College, and the system of federal checks and balances are all in place so that mass formation psychosis doesn't take over the whole country and convince them to do something ridiculous, like give Hunter Biden access to Air Force 2 with enough money to buy some top-quality Parmesan cheese, if you catch my drift. It's like Ben Franklin said, democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what's for lunch, and liberty is a lamb killing the wolves with a fully automatic M27 IAR because he used constitutional republicanism to deregulate the ATF. But seriously, America has only become a democracy in the last century or so, and actual conservatives should seek to reestablish the old system of constitutional republicanism. Probably with stricter rules about changing the Constitution, though, because that's how we got here in the first place. Moving on. Now, we all know that men and women are not completely equal. Obviously, we are both of equal dignity, as we're both made in God's image, but men and women clearly have their differences. Many neocons ignore this, however, and insist on pushing women into spheres that are more geared towards men, like STEM or sports, so that they seem more inclusive. Presumably to appeal to more liberal voters who, will hate them regardless. But all this does is help remove women from their natural roles as mothers and nurturers, and into roles where they end up being much less happy. It's like God said in Genesis, different splendors for different genders. You know, God didn't actually... Shut up. This is one that really grinds my gears. Every neocon, politician, or pundit seems to get off on this idea that they are oh so righteous, because while they are religious Christians, they won't be too Christian because they respect the separation of church and state. Sounds pretty righteous, right? Pretty pious? Well, it's not, and that's because, drumroll please, the separation of church and state is not found anywhere in America's founding documents. The idea comes from some letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote, and that letter is in regards to how the state shouldn't interfere with the church, not the other way around. So there's no reason at all Christians can't legislate on Christian morality. Neocons are just saying this because they're lazy and need an excuse to not be actual Christians. This one is a new development and started sneaking into conservative thought around 2012-2015, when gay marriage was being legalized. It was and still is a cheap way for neocons to stay uncontroversial, and not explicitly condemn homosexuality, while maintaining this guise of being personally opposed to it.
I'm more moral than you, Mr. White Boy.
Shut up. This is an extremely short-sighted tactic and neglects to address one key point. Evil and degeneracy love to spread. Evil knows that it's evil, but instead of becoming good, it elects to try to get itself accepted in the culture. If evil is not outright condemned, it will continue to expand its influence. If we want to conserve morality as conservatives, we can't avoid condemning evil like these neocons seem to think. If someone is trying to convince you these days that the slippery slope is still a fallacy, they're either trying to trick you or they just can't read the room. I mean, think about it. In 2015, gay marriage was legalized across the US, and gay people didn't have to hide who they were anymore. And now, 8 years later, we've got kids being indoctrinated with porn books in public schools, and we've got drag queens indoctrinating kids with even more porn books in public libraries. Yeah, you tell me that the slippery slope isn't real, pal. I'm not having it. I saved the best one for last, guys. This is one that really makes me want to stone cold stutter the Republican elephant. It is just so completely disrespectful to America as a nation, so offensive to my countrymen and my fellow white boys, I literally quake in anger at the thought of this conservative idea. And that idea is... America is a nation of immigrants. Nothing makes me more upset than conservatives saying we need to replace the founding stock of America as opposed to conserving that founding stock and taking care of them, since they are the life and soul of this nation.
Hey, but Mr. White Boy, everybody came here on a boat at some point, so we're all immigrants.
The difference is that the United States of America did not exist until European settlers came here and built it. Indigenous people aren't Native Americans. We are Native Americans because we created America. America's founding stock didn't travel to an already established country. They came to the wilderness and built a country from scratch. Just because we sailed here to create our own country doesn't mean we owe outsiders who are coming in to freeload anything at all. Especially recently, because these outsiders are literally, repeatedly, voting for the political party that wants to replace the founding stock of America with other immigrants. What? How can you advocate for the replacement of your native founding population and call yourself a conservative? That doesn't make any sense.
But I'm only advocating for these policies because that man in the trench coat gave me money to do it.
I'd better get out of here. Oh, no you don't. We've figured you out, pal. You aren't a conservative. You're a liberal hijacking our movement.
Hey, listen, buddy, you got it all wrong. If you would just...
I knew it. But for real, guys, it's important in a movement based on conserving traditional American values that we make sure our ideas actually help to conserve those values. The right has spent the last 50 or so years spinning its wheels and losing ground, and that has to end with us. That's going to do it for me today. I'm Base White Boy, and thank you guys for watching.